faith. There were no restrooms, there were no coffee break, there was no food. And I said, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? One of them, was a financial guy. That tax collector, that tax guy from the government, he was smart, could figure things out. Some of them were just simple folks, but they worked hard. And continually, he built this group of these 10 to 12 men who really could figure out what they had to do and perhaps how to do it. There we go. Now we have 3, and the 3 are part of the 12. Now, Mr. Business Leader, I'm going to challenge you. What I oftentimes do as a coach is I challenge you. Remember, I'm just the coach. I'm not your boss. You're out there working hard. And perhaps you have a pretty good-sized business sector, or you're growing this business. And it may not be 12. It may not be 10. It may be 7. Who is in that middle group of managers or supervisors or leaders that you are teaching the mission to? I remember one gentleman came up to me and he said to me, Stan, I have a good business. And I said, what do you do? And he says, I have 3 McDonald's franchises. Well, many of you would say, that's a good business. Another man did something that I've been told by one of my friends is a universal word in every language. Coca-Cola. He ran a franchise of Coca-Cola bottlers, distributorships. The man from McDonald's said to me, I need to find my 3. Yeah. And then I have to have my 10 or 12. I thought my business was making hamburgers. No. By the way, what McDonald's found out is you make more money with the French fries than with the hamburgers. I need people to make my business happen. I need to have my 3. And he hit himself across the head and said, that's where I ought to spend my time, working with the 3. And perhaps within each of those franchises, you then may have 3 or 4 people that can be the 10 or the 12. And these are the people you take on retreats. These are the people you take to conferences. These are the people you take long walks with. You sometimes have dinner with them or a party with them after the office closes or after the business shuts down. And you talk to them and you say, how are things going? How can I help you? Was it a good day? How's the family? Are there things in your life that are difficult? You need to spend time with the 3. And you need to spend time with the 10 to 12 who know the mission. Now, that could be a metaphor. In this case, it was literally true. There were 3 people. There were 12 people who knew the mission. Perhaps it might be more. It can't be much more. Perhaps it's fewer. But the 3 knew the priority. They knew what was truly important. The 10 to 12 knew the mission and how to do it and how to achieve it. And they also knew disappointment. But they also found out that even in the midst of their disappointment, the leader of the organization was always there comforting and encouraging because he cared deeply about them. He cared as much about them as he did about the clients and customers and the success of the business. And so there was loyalty to him. It's not enough. As I said, this guy was really smart. He then had, it seems, and it says in the chronicles of the organization that he had 70 people. And it turns out that probably there were women in this group. And it turns out that I believe that these people were the kind of people he could network with. They didn't hang around with the company. Some of them might have been part of the company, but they had other jobs. One of them was a very, 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 very powerful religious leader. Two of them were women who ran a hospitality inn. And he found out that what he needed was, and I call it this way, 50 to 70 people in his LinkedIn network that he could call on. Hey, we're having a party. Can you put things together? Hey, we're putting on a program. Could you help me out? Could you deal with that government official for me? And they learned from him. Now, they didn't fully understand the mission, and they didn't fully understand the priorities and the principles and the practices, but they knew this was a good man. And they knew that the organization was doing the right thing. And they knew that they wanted to be a part of what he was about. Keep in mind, their loyalty was more to him than it was to the company or the organization. But they admired him. And I have reason to believe that he was really a funny guy. He could make people laugh. I believe his smile was incredibly infectious. We're told that kids would hang around him. Now, no kids love a grumpy CEO. They don't run up to some CEO who's, a sourpuss and mean and nasty. In fact, sometimes when they would actually have conventions where all of the people would come together, the kids would hang around the CEO and the big shots would say, "Why are you spending time with the kids? Spend time with the important people." And sometimes he would give them a dirty look, and then he would smile and say, maybe they're future customers. Oh, never thought of that. And then he would say, think about that. In fact, I believe he was always doing that. Think about that. Think about it a lot. And then he said, will you help me? Isn't it interesting that this leader was continually asking other people to help him? And I have a sneaking suspicion that he oftentimes didn't care who got the credit. In fact, some of the accounts of his stories is people came up to him and said, "Hey, this was great. Good stuff." And he said, "Just cool it. Just cool it. It's about the customer. It's about the client. It's not about me, Well, we'd like to be important." He said, they're important. $3-12-70. Mr. Business Leader, Ms. Fashion Leader, Ms. Leader of many operations, business sector organizer, pastor of a large church, leader of a big nonprofit organization, government official. Who are your three? Are you working with them? Have you identified them? Are you seeking to help them grow and be better at who they are? Because someday you're going to be gone. And I wonder what they're going to say when you're gone. Thank goodness that blankety blank is gone. Or are they going to say, when we remember him, it was good. He made us more than we could ever be. My gosh, I was a truck driver and I got to change the world. I was a corrupt government taxman and I wrote a book that millions read. We traveled to the ends of the earth and people listened to us and incredible things happened. And simple people who ran an inn or had a government job or a simple religious leader, many of them we don't know of, found out that hundreds, thousands of people rose up and said, they were good. Now, some of you have figured this out, haven't you? Though many of you haven't. But the principle is valid for all eternity, my friends. If you want to build an organization that lasts, you choose 3 men, women, and you pour your life into them. You teach them, you guide them, you help them discover what is important in life and in business. You expand that circle to 10 or 12, and you teach them the mission. You spend time with them. You take long walks with them. You take them on retreats. You welcome them. You criticize them in a loving way. You challenge them to be better at what they are, to become men and women of character and competence and creativity. You ask for energy. No sleepiness in this place. No slouching in this place. Hey man, hey woman, we're going to be world class. Get off the internet and get to work. And then you have a network of people perhaps going and growing around the world who you help, you teach, you train. But you know what? You're smart enough to ask for help. And they enjoy helping you because they admire you and appreciate you, and they care about you, and they know you're doing a good thing, and they know that working with you is good for them as well as for you. 3, 12, 70. Fertilizer. Formula for growing an organization that will make a difference. As I said a few minutes ago, some of you figured this out. That's right. His name is Jesus. And at the age of 30, after years of study, he decided to change the world because he believed that's what he was made for and what he was born for. And he knew that we have to do what we were made for and what we were born for. And by the way, my friends, you were made for something and you were born for something. Don't miss it. Please don't miss what you were made for or what you were born for. Because you were made and born for a purpose. And then he put the 3 together. He took the 10 and 12 and taught and trained and missioned them out and commissioned them. Commission means to go with the mission. Do it. Achieve it. Get it done. When people came back and said, well, we're trying, he says, we're not in the business of trying. We're in the business of building and achieving and making a difference. Good for you. Try harder. Pray more. Work the plan. Make a difference. Suffer adversity. If people give you a bad time, deal with it. And move on. Don't get distracted. And then 70 people, men and women of character and competence and power and energy, who could help and achieve the mission. 3 years later, he quit. He just decided, no, it was part of the plan. He knew that the 3 and the 12 and the 70 were going to make it happen. You see, eventually you're going to discover that good leaders practice what my colleagues and I are working with. We call it leadership by absence. Sometimes the most powerful leader in the world leads by being away. And the only way you can lead by absence, though, is you spent time and energy mentoring, coaching, teaching, training, helping these people to join the tribe, join the company, become a follower and a believer in the mission. And then he simply said this, I'm going away. And they said, you're going away! What do you mean you're going away? Didn't you know that's what this was all about? Well, what's going to happen to the company? What's going to happen to the organization? It's going to fall apart. You know, I can even imagine one of them saying, in the language of a businessman, hey, it'll go to hell. And he would say, oh no, it's not going to hell. In fact, just the opposite is going to happen. And then he even dropped the bad word on him. Not only was he leaving, he was going to die. Oh my God, this is getting terrible. Hey, man, I sold my truck to work for you. I quit my government job with a good pension to work for you. You know, and now you're going to leave the company? You're going to die? What kind of deal is this? You know what he told him? It's about life. It's about the full life. It's about doing what you were made for and what you were born for, just as I was doing and am doing what I was made and born for. And you're going to do it. Well, how are we going to do it? You're the man. You're the jefe. You're the deal. And he said, come on, weren't you paying attention? I'm not the deal now. You're going to be the deal. It's going to be up to you. You're going to take over. Oh, but hey, boss, we'll never be able to do it as well as you did it. And he said, you know what? I think you might even do it better sometimes. Wow. The man was 30 years old. Started an organization. He was CEO for 3 years. And then he got in trouble. By the way, whenever you achieve something great, you'll get in trouble. I promise you. Deal with it. As I learned from this man, adversity is part of the plan. Because when you achieve something good and you start to pour yourself in building a good business or organization, people are not going to like that. And as I said in many of my presentations, I even believe that there are forces in the world. Remember that Star Trek characters about the Dark Force? That's real stuff, my friends, that will come against you and try and take advantage of the situation. So for 3 years, he worked the plan. He did the plan of 3, 12, 70. And when they killed him, and they did kill him. Now, in many countries, they don't believe in capital punishment, but in his they did. And they just didn't kill you. They killed you so that people would remember what they did to you. The last time he was with the boys, he said, I want you to remember me now. I want you to remember me. Remember what I told you. Remember what I did. Remember how I served the customers. Most importantly, I want you to remember me. Because you know what? He was very human. He knew that it's important to be appreciated. Please remember me. Don't forget me. But most importantly, don't forget what I was about. Don't forget what we were trying to achieve. Make it happen. One of them, I'm sure, though we don't have the full record of that conversation with Jesus at that time, said, Master, CEO, is that the plan? He said, that's the plan. You're the plan. I'm leaving. 3 of you, 10 of you, 70 of you, go out, change the world. One of them had a master's degree in business administration, I'm sure. And he said, what's plan B? We always need a what? Backup plan? And the master said, I have no backup plan. 3, 12, 70 is the plan. You're the plan. He said, remember what I taught you. Remember how I led you. Remember how I cared for you. Remembered how I cared for children. How I took care of widows and orphans. Remember that we just didn't deal with the big shots. We dealt with the little people. In fact, sometimes we even irritated the big shots, didn't we? Just remember that. You're the plan. work the plan. I'll be gone. But then he smiled, probably gave them a wink, and said, but I'll be with you. I'll be with you. It'll be okay. Go in peace. Go in grace. See you later, guys. Bye for now.
Olá, meus amigos, nós vamos ter uma grande oportunidade hoje, que é ouvir um dos mais famosos coaches da atualidade, que é o Stan Houston. Ele tem uma série de clientes, vem fazendo isso há 20 anos, e ele vai falar de um assunto muito importante que é útil para qualquer área de nossas vidas, que diz respeito a vendas, exatamente. A maioria de nós não gosta de vendedor. Quando alguém diz que é vendedor, a gente já se sente muito desconfortável, mas o Stan tem uma série de princípios interessantes que faz com que a pessoa que trabalha em qualquer área possa exercer a sua função de maneira a ser agradável àqueles que estão ouvindo. Stan, it's great to have you here today, and I was sharing with our people that sometimes people do not like salesmen, and I'm sure you can give a completely different vision on this field. Could you help us today?
Well, first of all, I'm going to do what every good salesman should do. And the salesman should thank the person for the opportunity to be in your presence.
All right.
I'm delighted to be here in Brazil. When I left the United States, a very powerful banker said to me, "Oh, Stan, Sao Paulo, Brazil, they are an emerging, will be a world power, and some of the best business in the world is now coming out of Brazil."
Wow, that's great. It's an encouragement to hear such a thing.
And so many people who are making a difference in the business world are coming right out of what people used to call a third world nation. Definitely, it's first world now.
Yes, yes, and we are so thankful that this is happening, you know.
And so, yes, things are changing rapidly when it comes to sales.
Mm-hmm.
And your question is right. I'm just a salesman, or in sales,
Right.
or someone is meets you at an airplane, or and you say, "Oh, well, I'm a salesperson."
Yeah.
Let me tell you a story. I think that'll help you feel better about this. When I was a young man, my father asked me to go for a ride with him because he was going to do a few errands. And so years ago, oftentimes dads didn't do that, So I always liked to go for a ride with my dad. And he said, "Oh, I forgot I was going to stop by and see one of my friends who owns this business, and why don't you come in and meet him and see him?" That felt important for a young boy. I think I was probably about 11 years old at that time.
Okay.
So I went with my father into his office, and I just kind of sat in the corner, and they transacted their business and did all of the things that they did. And I was very impressed that I did that. As I walked out of his room, right in a big, big poster right outside this man's office was a sign that said, "Nothing happens until somebody sells something."
That's nice.
And you think about that, that's true. Selling means that somebody heard a message, they received an idea, and they said, "That's a good idea,"
Yeah.
and they acted on it and did something. And everybody's job depends on somebody selling something.
Yeah, that's true. In reality, I think the problem is we got an impression that people are trying to push things
right.
that we do not want. And this is the kind of salesman that in reality we have in the back of our mind, and that we do not like them. But in reality, everything, any need we have will be supplied by a salesman, right?
If you're a teacher, you're a salesman, a saleswoman. You're getting these students to buy this idea, do this exercise, learn something. You've got to convince them that it's worthy doing.
Right.
You're a leader of a church, a pastor or a priest.
Uh-huh.
You're a salesperson.
Okay.
You're a leader of an organization, and you're trying to get people to give money to your charity.
Yeah. Yeah. Even missionaries, when they have to present
That's
the
right.
work they do overseas. They need people to support them, so they have to know how to present what they do. In some sense, that is selling, isn't it?
It is always selling. I tell
Uh-huh.
people, you're always selling. And by the way, no matter what you're doing, whether it be a social work, perhaps a church work, a business or a school, in effect, nothing does happen until somebody sells something, because if there's no money, there's no mission.
Yeah.
No matter how noble the mission is,
Right.
somebody has to sell something.
Now, it's about the product, it's about the service, or it's about the salesperson?
I tell people this: nobody buys anything until they buy you first.
Okay.
I don't care whether you're trying to sell a truck, whether you're trying to sell termite control, whether you're trying to sell tacos, whether you're trying to sell a house, an insurance policy. Nobody will